Trying to improve your FTP or overall cycling endurance whilst trying to balance work, family and life can be really tricky. But the good news is you don't need to spend endless hours on the bike to make some real progress. When it comes to building serious fitness, there really are only 3 types of ride that actually matter. These sessions form the foundation of a smart training plan and target the key pillars of endurance: VO2 max, lactate threshold, and cycling economy. In this video, I'm going to break down each type of ride, explaining the science behind them and give you examples for each so you can start using them straight away. By the end, you'll know exactly how to structure your training to get maximal gains, no matter how limited your training time is. Okay, so the first type of ride is our long ride, and this is typically done at the weekend because that's when we have most time, but I'll show you exactly how to plan things out over the course of the week a little bit later on. Long rides are usually 1 or more hours. It's going to depend on what kind of goal you're looking to achieve. If you have a race coming up, for example, you're going to want to gradually build up to that race distance, how much time you have available, or how much time your partner will let you head out on the bike for. If you're training for something specific, you're going to want to increase that distance each and every week building up to the event. You're probably not going to want to increase your distance or time on the bike by any more than 10% each week to make sure that you're not at any risk of injury and your body has a time to adapt. I'm not training for anything specific at the moment, so my kind of Sunday long rides are just kind of whatever I fancy, but they're usually longer than the rides or any sort of the exercise that I do during the week because I have a little bit more time, but I still want to spend my weekend doing other things as well, so they're not necessarily that long for me, but it's going to depend on exactly what you want to do. Long rides can be as long as you want, as long as you have enough fuel on board. Long rides are going to be completed at about zone 2, so around about 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate, or 55 to 75% of your FTP, if that's something you're tracking. So they're going to be at a fairly gentle pace, a pace you could probably talk to somebody next to you if they were riding next to you, or if you are out on a group ride. You can potentially involve some other zones, so push a little bit harder, especially if you're training for a race that you know you want to be at a certain pace for. You might include certain sections of the ride at a kind of set pace or in a set zone that you're looking to perform at during your race. So you could chunk things up a little bit just to make the ride, I suppose, less monotonous, or hit the hills a little bit harder if you wanted to. These kind of rides are going to be really brilliant as well to practice any fueling. So if you are training for something specific, trying different gels or different foods whilst you're out on the bike every sort of 20 to 30 minutes is usually how you'll be fueling. Trying things, seeing what works best with your stomach and fuels you best is going to be brilliant as well for these long rides. These kind of rides are obviously really great because they're going to help us build our endurance, but these are working on what we call peripheral adaptations. So these are those kind of mitochondria, those small powerhouses in our muscle cells. We're going to be increasing the kind of size and number of these. We're also going to be increasing what we call capillarization, I can't say that, but the number of capillaries or blood vessels in and around the muscles themselves as well, helping the oxygen you can take in sort of be transported and utilized more efficiently and effectively, and increasing what we call our cycling economy. Another ride that does this to a lesser degree is our second type of ride, and that is our easy ride. And this is one that's commonly missed from many cyclists because we feel that every time we go out, we need to be hitting things as hard as possible. But easy rides are really, really important because they help us get the miles in, potentially during the week, but without building up excess fatigue. So when it comes to doing those harder rides, which I'll mention for the third type of ride, you can actually execute them and actually go hard and go all out and get your heart rate where it needs to be potentially, because you haven't built up loads of fatigue during the week during your easy rides. What ends up happening usually is we have every ride as a hard ride, and then actually the hard rides aren't hard anymore because we've built up so much fatigue. So these easy rides stop that from happening. They help build the same endurance as the long rides, but without less time needed for them. You can do these any amount of times per week, could be anything from 20 minutes up to an hour, even more than an hour, depending on how much time you have available. And again, these are going to be completed at zone 2, probably not dipping into other higher zones at this point because they are easy rides for a purpose. So again, going to be at a talking pace at around about 50 to 60%, or 60 to 70%, sorry, of your maximum heart rate. Really easy. These allow you to take then your harder sessions as hard, and then you need to make sure these easy rides are easy. Our third and final type of ride are our intervals, and it's really important for our intervals to plan these out into the week very well so they're not impacting your other rides, because they are quite fatiguing, but I'll go into how you plan everything into a week in a minute or so. There are 3 main types of intervals as well, so there's going to be VO2 max intervals, lactate threshold intervals, and sprint intervals. So VO2 max intervals are going to be improving as you would have thought, your VO2 max. So our VO2 max is essentially our maximum fitness. If you want to imagine a car as an analogy, the size of the engine is the VO2 max, so the kind of power it has. Our VO2 max is sort of genetically set, but we can improve our VO2 max and therefore improve our fitness. So VO2 max is the maximum amount of oxygen we can take in and utilize each and every minute. So it's something we're definitely wanting to improve, and we improve it with shorter intervals than some of the other interval sessions that we might do. So the intervals for a VO2 max session are going to be anywhere from 105% to 120% of our FTP if you're measuring FTP. If you're not, they're going to be 90% or more of your max heart rate. So they're going to be pretty balls to the wall, going all out during each interval. And the intervals are going to be anywhere between 3 to 8 minutes in length. That's going to allow you to perform maximally for that time period, and you want a work to rest ratio of 1 to 1. So what that means is a session might look like 4 by 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off, or something like 6 lots of 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off. And for those 4 minutes on or 6 minutes on, you're going to be working at that 105 to 120% of your FTP, or 90+% of your maximum heart rate. And the rest and recovery isn't just stopping, not doing anything. It's obviously, kind of letting your legs recover, getting rid of the waste products in your legs, sort of ticking things over so you're ready to go for that next interval. This is really easily done if you have some local hills, for example, or especially if you have an indoor trainer, because you can kind of program these into your Garmin or whatever it is you're using, or on Zwift. If you are doing these out on the road, you just kind of need to pick the correct route so that you can kind of nail these to the best of your ability and get in the kind of right zones for the right amount of time. Our VO2 max intervals are going to be eliciting what we call central adaptation. So whereas our longer rides and easy rides are going to be improving things at our peripheries, at our muscles, our VO2 max intervals are going to be improving things centrally. This is why it's important to work out different zones and have different kind of sessions throughout the week. So our VO2 max intervals are going to improve our sort of size and strength of our heart, increase what we call our stroke volume, the amount of blood you can get around per beat. Also going to be improving things like our lungs, our tidal volume, how much air we can literally get in and get around the body as well. Our interval sessions, especially VO2 max interval sessions, are really intense, so you're probably wanting to do these once. If you're more advanced, twice maximum per week. We also have lactate threshold or threshold intervals, and if you think back to that analogy I mentioned of the car, where the VO2 max was the size of the engine, our lactate threshold is essentially kind of a limiter on that car. So it's no use having a Ferrari if it's stuck at 40 miles an hour and you can't go any quicker. So elite athletes will have a really high lactate threshold so they can work to a sort of larger percentage of their VO2 max, whereas as recreational athletes will probably have a lot lower. So we might have a fairly big sort of full fitness level, but we can't utilize it because we're not efficiently able to get rid of that lactate and use all of that fitness and oxygen we're taking in. So our lactate threshold intervals are going to be completed at around about 90 to 105% of our FTP, functional threshold, as it says in the name, power. So we're going to be around about 100% of it, above or below, or 75 to 90% of our max heart rate. We're looking to have around about a 2 to 1 work to rest ratio for our lactate threshold intervals, and the intervals themselves are going to be anywhere from sort of 10 to 30 minutes in length. So some classic examples are 2 lots of 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off, or 3 lots of 10 minutes on, 5 minutes off. So you've got that 2 to 1 work to rest ratio, and then intervals anywhere between 10 to 30 minutes. These are a little bit trickier if you're trying to do these outside because they're longer intervals. If you're stopping at things like traffic lights or going up really steep hills, it's going to be quite hard to keep your heart rate or FTP in the right zone. So these are best done on the trainer, but are definitely possible to do outdoors as well. Now I did mention you've got your sprint intervals as well. This is where you're working well above 120% of your FTP or well above 90% of your maximum heart rate. These are going to help with other things like neuromuscular power or your repeat sprint ability. Probably not the kind of things you want to be doing if you're a beginner, but if you're intermediate and more advanced, these are going to be really useful things to have in your toolbox. But for the majority of us, a long ride, some easy rides during the week, and then having some intervals, VO2 max and threshold, probably going to be the best bang for your buck. But now you know the 3 key types of rides, how do you go about actually scheduling them into your week? Because that's probably the most important part. So apologies for the mucky board and 5-year-old's handwriting, but this is what your week might look like. Of course, it might differ drastically depending on how much time you have available, what sort of level you are, but here's a nice example. So I mentioned long rides, we're probably going to do at the weekend because that's when we have the most time available. So most people will probably be on a Sunday, could be Saturday, doesn't matter. Next session that's going to improve our fitness the most is going to be some kind of interval. Doesn't matter for now whether it's a threshold one or a VO2 max one, we just need to be doing some kind of interval, one or the other. So let's put that on the Tuesday. So we're having a day's rest to make sure we can attack this interval session as best we possibly can. So that's going to be our interval session. If you're a beginner, we're then probably going to want to add an easy ride in. And again, if we can have a nice day's rest or 2 days rest, make sure we're trying to, if you're doing 3 sessions a week, have a rest day at least in between each one, in an ideal world anyway. Then let's make Thursday our easy ride, 2 days recovery before our harder, longer ride at the weekend. So that's what your week might look like, especially as a beginner. Your interval session 1 week might be a threshold interval, and then the following week it might be a VO2 max interval, so you're hitting everything over the course of 2 weeks. If you're more advanced and still just want to do 3 sessions per week, then we can maybe replace this easy session with another interval session. Let's make that our threshold intervals and this one our VO2 max intervals. So you're getting your 2 intervals in your 2 hard sessions. Evidence shows you can't really recover from more than 2 hard sessions per week. And of course, remember that our long ride is a little bit sort of harder as well than an easy ride too, because we're going further over time. That's probably going to be perfect to get the maximum gains in fitness over 3 rides per week. Any other rides that you do are just going to be easy rides, allowing you to take your easy rides easy and your hard rides hard. So if you wanted to add in more volume, you might add in, I don't know, an easy ride there, and then if you had more time because you're very lucky, you might add in an easy ride there. So again, we just want to make sure we plan and schedule our week so that our easy rides are easy, our hard rides are hard, and we have enough time to recover. And of course, that's what a perfect week would look like. We're going to have work getting in the way, family getting in the way, how dare they? So again, scheduling these things in is going to be really important. They're more likely to happen then, but if things get in the way, of course, we need to be aware that we might need to reschedule stuff. And you know, the training isn't the sole purpose. We're on this earth. It's really important to us, of course, but you know, we can chop and change things as needed. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, check out this one here where I go through one key training mistake many cyclists are making that are holding them back. Thanks so much, ride strong, and I'll catch you in the next one.